I asked Enzo Maresca directly, does Raheem have a future under you? And he was pretty inconclusive. I think the football club, the sporting directors, the owners have decided that Raheem Sterling, who's on massive money, they want him out.
That is not Maresca's decision. He's not in control of the play, even on the playing side. So I don't think he's got any chance at all there.
There's absolute chaos at the football club,
Yep.
and it's become a little bit embarrassing.
I don't understand the project and the fans. There's a lot of frustration.
I didn't think anybody would get anywhere near a goal a game in the Premier League. Frightening.
City, I think, personally, should switch Ederson out for Ortega before he makes a costly error. There you go, that's my first big, bold call of the season. Hello and welcome to Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface. The first week of the Premier League action has officially kicked off. So let's take a look back on all the highs and the lows and the chaos from a weekend alongside talkSPORT's chief football correspondent Alex Crook and the former Arsenal winger Perry Groves. Hello, welcome to the show. Boys, what's your one big takeaway from the first weekend of the Premier League season? We're all delighted that it's back. We all got very excited on Friday night. I was at Old Trafford. I was at Stamford Bridge with you. You were at Brentford and Arsenal the weekend, Perry. What's your big takeaway?
I really like the performance of Mazraoui on debut for United, and I think he's someone who's going to become a cult hero very quickly.
This is despite the fact that you said you weren't sure whether or not he was a big upgrade on Wan-Bissaka.
I'm flip-flopping already.
Good, I like that. What's yours?
VAR, it's not going, is it? It's all exactly the same, where they still can't get some things right. Controversial refereeing decisions, obviously, which we'll speak. I was at the Brentford game where Eze had a worldie ruled out. So, things don't change. So Howard Webb have a good briefing this morning, I think.
Things don't change, but maybe things should change. City, I think, personally, should switch Ederson out for Ortega before he makes a costly error. I know it's controversial, but he made several mistakes yesterday. Ring rustiness, probably, but he had more of a pre-season than most of his teammates, and he had the end of last season off because of an eye socket injury. He's come back, and he was very lucky, I think, that Chelsea didn't capitalise on some of his mistakes.
Yeah, and I think you can probably see from that performance why City were open to offers. If somebody from Saudi hit the magic number, I think they'd have sold him and Ortega would have been the number one. So interesting to see how that battle develops over the course of the season.
There you go, that's my first big, bold call of the season. Right, let's get into the weekend. Shall we start in West London? Chelsea 0, Manchester City 2. Shall we start with the chaos at Stamford Bridge? I mean, look, this game came at the backdrop of what was disharmony and rancour at Stamford Bridge because Enzo Maresca, he's got more players than Taylor Swift's got songs, but he's not going to be able to fit them all into the squad, but seemingly he doesn't want to use Raheem Sterling anymore. And he, like Conor Gallagher, Ben Chilwell, Carney Chukwuemeka, Trevor Chalobah, they're all being frozen out now, being told they've got to find pastures new. Tell us the story, because we were sitting in the stand, we got the team sheet, then within seconds you got a statement from the Raheem Sterling camp. How did it all unfold?
Well, we should stress that was in reply to me reaching out and asking what's your thoughts on Raheem's omission, and obviously they then released the statement saying they wanted clarity, not necessarily about the fact he'd been omitted from the team, but the fact that he played a lot of minutes in pre-season, he'd been at the forefront of advertising campaigns, previews for the match, so all the indications were that the football club were planning to use him, and then all of a sudden he gets told on Friday, well, maybe you're not part of my plans.
Did he get told on Friday?
I think he was told on Friday there was going to be competition for places and then that maybe he should start to assess his options, but certainly he wasn't told definitively, you don't have a future at the football club. I asked Enzo Maresca directly, does Raheem have a future under you? And he was pretty inconclusive in his answer.
No, he said,
he did,
don't know.
exactly. And that suggests to me that despite the narrative that Chelsea are putting out, it was Enzo's decision, it was a technical decision. I don't even know what that means. I think the football club, the sporting directors, the owners have decided that Raheem Sterling, who's on massive money, he's got 3 years left in his contract, they want him out.
Do you know the difference between Taylor Swift, you said about got more players and Taylor Swift's got songs? She knows what her set list is, what order it's going to be played in, and she knows who her backing dancers are. So she doesn't all of a sudden go, no, sorry, can you just move to one side and let another backing dancer in?
Unlike Chelsea, she's also in tune most of the time.
Yeah.
What does technical reasons mean? You're the expert. You've played the game. You've won
Don't
titles.
Talk to me about being technical player. You're having a laugh.
But talk, what does he mean when he says that we haven't managed to get him in the team because of technical reasons?
It's politician talk, isn't it? Where there's no rhyme or reason that Raheem Sterling's been left out of the matchday squad. Now, if he's left out of the starting 11, You go, OK, I can understand that. Not to have him on the bench when he's been involved all pre-season. He came back a couple of weeks early, didn't he, to get himself fit. Yeah. Was waxing lyrical about Enzo Maresca, saying, oh, what a manager he is. I think he can get the best out of me. That is not Maresca's decision. And I feel a bit sorry for him because he can't succeed at Chelsea because the decisions are being made, right? They're not his decisions. So he's not in control of the play, even on the playing side. And if they are his decisions he's making aren't the right on the football side of it. So I don't think he's got any chance at all there.
Well, it was interesting yesterday. Chelsea obviously needed to press a little bit better. They could have done with someone like Conor Gallagher in their midfield. Obviously, he wasn't
go. He's gone.
Available.
Let it go. Frozen. Let it go. He's frozen out.
He certainly is.
And they were undone by a midfielder who they sold for 30 million, and he ghosted past two they replaced for 280 to smash the ball for the clinching goal. I mean, it was pretty ironic, really.
Well, that for me sums up all that's wrong at Chelsea. I think the only player from the team that won the Champions League who was on the pitch yesterday was Kovacic, and he was playing for the opposition. The goalkeeper, with hindsight, was a great strike, but a top-class goalkeeper does better.
Chocolate wrists.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's poor. Sanchez, I think Chelsea think he's poor. I think they think
Mauricio
all the
Pochettino
goalkeepers are poor. Yeah, so they've not got a goalkeeper. They've not got a centre-forward. They might not get a centre-forward because I still maintain if you're Victor Osimhen's people, why on earth would you direct him to Chelsea? So that they've got problems at both ends of the pitch. They've got too many young players. They're getting rid of all their experience. I don't understand the project. And the fans, I spoke to a few fans, went for a drink at the ground last night. There's a lot of frustration with the owners.
Interestingly, I've been moaning and whinging about this for the whole of the summer, and you've been laughing and joking at me, taking the mick, saying...
Oh, it's funny. It's funny. It is.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
It's comedy.
But you're all coming round to my way of thinking now. You all realise that there's absolute chaos at the football club.
Yep.
And it's become a little bit embarrassing. That's the problem.
For you?
It is.
Not for us.
It's embarrassing to watch. I mean, Micah Richards said yesterday that Raheem Sterling, by releasing that statement, had let his teammates down. Jamie Redknapp, I think, has said that the statement was a load of rubbish. Pat Nevin said that he thinks he's the next one out. Henry Winter on our show indicated that he thought the way that Sterling was being treated lacked respect. Where do you stand as a former player on the way that Chelsea are operating here, accumulating all these players, squeezing out some of the senior players and basically saying, we don't want you anymore, we're discarding you, go and train with the kids?
Do you know what it is? As a player, you want it to be treated with respect and a bit of class. And Chelsea have shown neither of those. But if you're like a younger player, I must admit, if I was a younger player and I'm going to Chelsea and I'm on a 7-8 year contract and I'm on 150 grand a week, and you know that you've got more power than a manager because they know that the manager's not in control. Soon as, like the result yesterday, actually, I thought they got away with 2-0. You'd have settled for that before the game after being 1-0 down after 4 minutes. It would help if
City actually tried.
Right, yeah, but as a player, if it starts to go wrong and there's no senior players there to galvanise, we could talk about Brighton probably a little bit as well. And I mentioned about Brighton they're like a boy band, Brighton, but they've got 3 chaperones with Dunk, Milner and Welbeck. Chelsea are like a boy band whose chaperones are their boy bands. So there's no one there to galvanise that dressing room when it's not going well to go, right, we're all sticking together. And the Raheem Sterling thing, I would rather than his people released a statement, I'd rather it was him and just say, I'm really disappointed that I've been left out of the matchday squad. I've been training really well, because that isn't being honest. The manager's not being honest. And you know, when he's saying for technical, forget Raheem Sterling's statement. He's allowed to say, by the way, I'm not very happy here because I haven't been treated very well. That statement that Maresca released about technical, that's the biggest load of nonsense ever. And fans, you're not stupid. You're reading that going...
We all know what the real deal is the owners have decided they've got to cut the squad and we've got to get it down to 25 and we've got to get the wages down. So you've got to get players
sign in the first place and pay ridiculous money? There's no long-term plan.
Why sign Trevor Chalobah to a contract to 2028 and then tell him, by the way, you ain't going to feature in the first team squad? Because if he decides that he does not want to go to another football club and does the old Winston Boharder stuff, we've seen it before, where he just goes in every day and trains, Chelsea have got to pay him for 4 years.
You've got Axel Disasi not in the squad. You've got Carney Chukwuemeka, who signed the long-term contract. They paid decent money for him, not in the squad. And that's all this is hidden the fact that actually, on the day when both sets of players took a knee, Chelsea thought it was a good idea to make Enzo Fernandez the captain.
There's no awareness, right? There's none at all. And can we just, I know we're talking about Chelsea, can we just mention Erling Haaland, by the way?
No, we'll come back to Manchester City in just a second. But the Enzo Fernandez thing is actually really important, really, because during the summer, Chelsea had to negotiate a big problem with Enzo Fernandez, which was that he, yes, made a mistake. Yes, everybody makes mistakes, as Enzo Maresca said afterwards, but released an offensive video where his teammates, some of them, unfollowed him on social media and were very vocal about the fact that they felt that the offensive chant that he was part of singing was deeply hurting them. He had to go on the pre-season tour and apologise to those players. Everybody made up and fine. But on the first day of the season, when the club has been involved in some serious issues with racism accusations before, by the way, and Raheem Sterling, actually, when he was a Manchester City player, was on the other end of that. To see him put the armband on and then take the knee, it seemed a pretty classless thing to do. It looked a little bit like they had no idea what was going on around them.
Do you think, again, that is Enzo Maresca's choice? Or do you think he said he's part of the leadership group and he's getting directives from above just to say, because what they buy Fernandes for, 105 million quid? So that's come from obviously above him with the sporting directors, obviously before he was there. So you think that, again, because that doesn't make sense on a cultural decision for everybody in the club, and it doesn't make sense on a football decision.
Well, what message does it send? You know, we're trying to promote an inclusive game. What message does it send?
It sends completely the wrong message. But what I think you've got to say about these owners, they don't care, do they? They don't care about the optics. They don't care about the stick they take. They're very steadfast in what they want to do with the football club. I'm not entirely sure that that's been articulated to the fans. But again, it got forgotten because there was so much other circus around it. The fact they left Conor Gallagher off the squad list on the back of the programme, absolutely class.
Too many stories, but Todd Boehly brutally cutting his wage bill and his squad,
and the buffet,
brutally as he cut his hair. And the buffet as well. Crook's not happy about the fact that he's cut the cost
what in the media centre? That's outrageous.
He's absolutely furious about that.
It was terrible.
It's normally a 3-course, 4-course meal when you're down there.
Yeah, it's first world problems. I'm not sure too many people have sympathy with you for that. Erling Haaland made his 100th appearance for Manchester City. Let's talk about the football because he is sensational, isn't he? 91 goals. Describe him in one word.
Frightening, because I didn't think his numbers are up there with Messi and Ronaldo. And to be fair, La Liga isn't as competitive as what the Premier League. I didn't think anybody would get anywhere near a goal a game in the Premier League. I know this is like all games, but even the Premier League, he's virtually a goal a game. And I just love the fact as well that he keeps stuff in his head, because he said obviously he had the problems with Cucurella, with the song, whatever, and he brushed him off, and his finish was brilliant. The little dink as Sanchez come out over him was top quality. And he said that he remembered that Sanchez pulled off a worldie from him last season, and he thought, I've got to get one past him. So he's got all these little reference points, and I love the fact that he's got this impish grin on him. Do you know what I mean? Where he knows how brilliant he is, and he's arrogant on the pitch, but not off it. Do you know what I mean? So he's just... Yeah, he's a phenomenon.
He was absolutely terrific, and the finish was good, although Chelsea will be a little bit disappointed that he squeezed through those two defenders. What did you make of Manchester City? I felt they were in cruise control, really. They didn't make a substitute, apart from the one they were forced into making when Savinho was injured at half-time. Apart from that, bearing in mind that most of those players have been away on international duty and haven't had a pre-season, he just said, you need the minutes. You might as well get out there and play 90.
I was disappointed Savinho couldn't come out for the second half, because there was a tactical change, wasn't there, from Pep early on when he switched the wingers, and it worked to perfection because Savinho got so much joy against Cucurella. Doku on the other side obviously played a big part in the first goal, and I thought he was excellent. I was looking forward to seeing what Savinho could do over the course of 60 to 90 minutes. He did say afterwards to me, Pep, it was just a precaution, so nothing to worry about in terms of injuries. But I think they were toying with Chelsea. They had so many extra gears they could have gone through. But for me, the standout player on the pitch, probably Kovacic in midfield, but Rico Lewis I thought was absolutely sensational. And I think Pep's got a problem now, because you've got Kyle Walker on the bench, but Rico Lewis has played his way into the team.
Yeah, there are quite a lot of rumours actually about the fact that there could be a swoop from Saudi Arabia for Cancelo and Walker this morning. That was doing the round.
Don't see Walker at this stage of his career going to Saudi Arabia. I think he's got one or two personal issues that may keep him in England.
Will they sign anybody else between now and the end of the window? Do they need to sign anybody else?
Yeah, I still think that they need a backup for Erling Haaland. I know they can play with a false nine, but if you look at Alvarez last season, he got 19 goals. And when he did replace Haaland, it wasn't that big a drop-off. And with all, you said all the games they're going to play, I think Pep will go, what Alex Ferguson used to do with his players, go, right, you can have a week off. Because he's got to go, you can go and rest, you can have a week.
Well, that's interesting because Carlo Ancelotti, the Real Madrid manager, said this week in the build-up to their first game against Mallorca that he was going to do an individualised holiday programme over the course of the season. So there were going to be times when he said, because of the Club World Cup, and they're in the same boat as Manchester City, he's going to go on till July, he's going to give star players, other players, a week off. Go and have a week off, go and get yourself sorted, we'll cope without you, and Real Madrid will have to play without it. And then when Pep was asked about that last night, he said, well, if Carlo says it, I'll probably follow.
The thing is, can we just do this tired, different definitions of tired, right? Tired is going to work for 10 hours, going home, having your tea, getting up, going, that's tired. There's different tired, right?
You must have been tired when you were playing all those games. Oh, no, you were just...
I'd rested quite a bit, to be fair. Exactly, yeah. I got sores on my backside, that's what... But when I was playing for Cox United, just quickly, I was playing 55 games in League Two where you get booted everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You don't get... You need a mental rest sometimes, but these players, they're so well looked after, they have ice baths and they have massage, whatever. They would rather play. If you asked a player, they would rather play every 3 or 4 days because they're not training. They're going in, you're recovering, you're doing team shape, then you're playing. So you've got definitions of tired. I agree with the mental side of it, but please, you're chasing a pig's bladder full of air around for 90 minutes. Let's not go too far, do you know what I mean?
Which is what Manchester United and Fulham did for 87 minutes of the game on Friday night at Old Trafford. Manchester United, I think, enjoyed the thrill of being top of the Premier League. Did you feel good at the end of that game?
I felt more positive than I did at this stage last season. It was a much better performance than the one against Wolves on the first day last year. Same result, but less nervy moments. Yes, they still gave away a couple of opportunities, but I think defensively they're going to be better when you get De Ligt in there alongside Martinez. I mentioned I like Mazraoui already. Xerxes coming off the bench showed he brings something different, the way he started the move for the goal and then the finish in front of the Stretford end. You said on air on Sunday that could be a sliding doors moment. So I think there are more reasons to be positive about United this season than last. I know people are queuing up and saying, well, same old United, no difference in the performance. Watch it again. That was a much more complete performance.
Well, I don't think it was the same old United. I thought it was markedly different. And the reason I think it was markedly different was because they're trying to do this thing where they're playing out from the back, which is, I think, was tempered actually in the game against Fulham from where they were against Manchester City. They're sort of learning these patterns as they go. But I also think there was, and you mentioned the sliding doors moment, that they were lacking a goal scorer. They would have been 2 or 3 up actually if they'd finished off some of the chances that they had. It reminded me more, not necessarily of last season, but the season before last, where they would get the job done. And I must admit, I thought it was a terrific finish by a player who only actually scored 11 goals in Serie A last season.
I think what Crookie said there, even before the goal, he's 6'4", so he's a physical presence, but his movement's good. He's not like full Krug who just like in the penalty box, you know what I mean? You bring it into me, I'll hold it up. He will move laterally, he'll come deep. And as the ball comes across him, that's instinctive. That is, you can do your finishing, crossing and finishing, and so you repeat it. But that is something that is in his head that he's born with. As it comes across his body, just to re-guide it with it was his left boot with his studs. So it was a brilliant fit. I'm not sure. I'm still not sure. I know you two like a bit more positive because Fulham got at Manchester United still very. They had 3 or 4 occasions where they were 2v1s. 3 Pereira should have played in a Wobie, obviously, and he hit Harry Maguire.
That was a big mistake from Pereira.
Yeah, exactly. Should have been a little bit earlier. But you can still get through that Man United midfield area far too easily.
They need someone in that position.
That's their problem, exactly.
And we've got 2 weeks to the window now. Closes. Fulham back in talks for McTominay. I'm still not convinced that he's going to be desperate to make that move. But if they can sell a player, that they will strengthen in midfield. You look at Ugarte potentially. Still talk of Sanderberg. I'm not completely convinced by that one. I think we'll know a lot more about United after this game live on talkSPORT on Saturday because Brighton are going to be a step up. And if they can get a point there, I think that would be a real positive.
Yeah, that game's live on talkSPORT 12:30 on Saturday. Just to talk to me about what it's like when you go to a new club and you have a positive debut like that. We saw so many players last season. I mean, yeah, but you would have known someone who had a positive debut.
I had a positive home debut. I scored against Watford. Yeah, see, top bins left. Yeah, but it takes the pressure off.
But what does it do?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you go to a new club, right, you're on trial. I was a Billy Nobody come coach. So even if you're a big signing, all the players are looking at you in your first training session, what your touch is like, what your awareness is like. So even though you go for 100 million quid, you're under a lot more pressure than if you're nobody. But you're on different levels. You're still under pressure. You're on trial. As soon as he scores, that will, because all of a sudden then you don't go as a centre forward 2 games without scoring, 3 games without scoring, because that's a club like Man United, that's big news.
Yeah.
Xerxes isn't going to be big news now on a negative side, he's going to be big news on the positive. And they said about him signing autographs, didn't they, afterwards? And it seems like he's a very affable character.
Seems a nice bloke.
But it's easier to do that because if it was me, I'd be wanting to sign it. I'd be running around everybody signing. So if you just scored the winning goal, you go, oh, I'm Xerxes, have a look, I'll sign that for you. So, but you're right, Sam, it will just make him feel a little bit calmer. That's the thing. I
spoke to Marco Silva after the game and he said to me that they need 3 new signings between now and the closing of the window. Are they going to get them?
Well, they're trying. As I say, they're back in talks.
What are your sources telling you?
They're back in talks for McTominay. Obviously, they weren't too shy of United's asking price before, so I think they'll be willing to pay the money. The question will be, is he willing to go or not? I think there's still links with Andre over in Brazil, but that seems to come up every transfer window. And I still think they're a little bit short at the top end of the pitch as well. I'm not sure we're going to get quite as many goals this season as we did last from Muniz.
OK, interesting stuff. Let's move on to Saturday. Everton 0, Brighton 3. Good start for the youngest ever permanent manager in the Premier League, Fabian Herzler. But this result maybe looks a little bit more generous in Brighton's favour than it could have been, because Everton had 2 great chances really early on and should have scored.
Yeah, and obviously Ashley Young getting sent off as well just made it like a little bit easier. But it's unbelievable. James Milner's 23rd consecutive Premier League season, which is mind-blowing. Fabian Herzler was only 9 when he made his debut. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
When you retired, Fabian Herzler wasn't even born.
I know, yeah, exactly.
He was a long way away from being born, wasn't he?
Yeah, and Hinchwood, who plays for Brighton, I played against his granddad. That's how old I am, Paul Hinchwood. But we mentioned Brighton, I know they've spent over 100 million quid, but their recruitment is second to none. There's no sensationalism, and I mentioned it earlier about they've got young players like in the wide areas with like Adingra and Minta and obviously Mitoma, but you still have that through the spine of your side. You still have Dunk, Milner and Danny Welbeck, and they're the ones that can mould the younger players around. And it's always going to be an exciting season for Brighton. And if you look at the finish as well, Danny Welbeck, brilliant. Left foot finish, just crest it in, and Adingra as well. So again, as a young manager, that then makes the players buy into your beliefs and your philosophy far quicker when you get a statement. Everton hadn't conceded at Goodison Park in Premier League for 5 games, and they missed Branthwaite next to Tarkowski. That was their problem.
Yeah, Fabian Herzler, younger than James Milner, and Danny Welbeck, who we've renamed Daddy Welbeck because he runs that dressing room down at Brighton. Talking of old men, 39 years and 39 days, it's a Premier League record to get sent off at that age for Ashley Young. Did have an impact. What about Sean Dyche's side? Because they've been battling it out at the wrong end of the table for a couple of years now. And I looked at the relegation odds this morning, and they've gone straight in. You know, because people are talking about with the ownership issue still not being resolved. Branthwaite again is being talked about as a possible target for not only Manchester United but for Liverpool as well, and also other players being touted around like Dominic Calvert-Lewin going to Newcastle.
Yeah, I think there's every chance Dominic Calvert-Lewin goes before the end of the transfer window, and it might be best for both parties because he's lost his way at Everton. I think he doesn't get the service there. He has to do a lot of his own work, and maybe a change is good for everybody.
I don't think people would be worried about these injuries.
They would be,
like Newcastle
absolutely.
With Callum Wilson, someone who's got not a great injury record as well. Do you think Newcastle will pay that sort of money for?
Well, I think the price will come down now. I mean, it was 40 million at the start of the window, but you're right, nobody's going to pay that for a player with his injury record.
They're going to move Wilson on, though, if they're going to sign Calvert-Lewin. Must do.
They've been trying to do that, but again, I think interest has been in short supply because of his own injury record. There was talk of Saudi earlier in the window, and we're trying to get clarification of this, but I think the Saudi window actually, again, stays open longer than the English window, so there could be some deals to be done even once business is closed in this country. But in terms of Everton, I thought they'd have a better season this year because I thought they'd done OK in the transfer market. I think Sean Dyche worked wonders last year to keep them safe with all the points deductions and off-field issues. But they just seem to start every season so badly, and this is a massive morale sapper to get hammered. And it was very close to being 4-0, very marginal.
Well,
that decision.
Ayari was so close to making it 4. It was a terrific run and another great cross from Adingra.
And I think already the fans have got that sinking feeling, Perry, and I think the players possibly have as well.
Yeah, you missed Onana as well. There's
Yep.
a big miss because he was giving them a presence when he get him from midfield, get himself into the box. But Sean Dyche has seen it all before. Do you know what I mean? He won't panic. Do you know what I mean? They just said if he can get...
He won't, but I mean, he must be sitting there thinking to himself...
Here we go again.
Here we go again. What's going on? How are we ever going to get this sorted? And not only Sean Dyche, but the supporters of that football club as well have been through the mill over and over and over again. They need clarity. They need structure. They need a plan. They're going to a brilliant stadium, an absolutely fantastic stadium on the edge of the water in Liverpool, which is going to dominate lots of conversations this time next year. However, they want to be doing that in the Premier League. Have they got enough to be able to stay in the Premier League at this moment in time?
At the moment, you would say that they're going to be in a relegation battle again. But then you don't know if new owners are coming in. It's not going to happen before the transfer window. So with Moshiri in charge, he's not going to want to spend loads of money when you're trying to sell a business. And
John Textor's going to get control of this club now, I think, because he's got exclusivity. Steve Parish was on the Sunday edition with Henry Winter and Sean Custis on talkSPORT on Sunday, and he basically said, he's going to move on and channel his efforts into Everton.
Yeah, the only issue I would have with that is obviously they had exclusivity before with Daniel Freakin, and he found some issues in the accounts that he wasn't particularly comfortable with. Surely John Textor is their experienced businessman, an experienced operator. He's going to find the same problem. So, yeah, I believe it when the ink is dry in the contract.
Yeah, I think probably the Everton fans will feel the same way. Across Stanley Park, the mood is a little bit more buoyant. Arne Slot was the first manager to win on opening day for Liverpool since Graham Souness. That was a very long time ago. A slow start for them in the first half, but they got to grips with it in the second.
Yeah, I think Ipswich went about their business quite well for about an hour, where they went a bit Bielsa-ball, didn't they? Where they went sort of man for man and they had the high press. But the problem when you play like that is you can't play like that for 90 minutes. And just as they eased off a little bit, and obviously Arne Slot made the big decision to take Quanta off, putting Konate on because he said he wanted more individual battles and winning the individual duels. Then as they got a little bit tired and you don't close down for that half-yard, then Liverpool started to play around them. And we can talk about, I should have said at the beginning actually, one of the highlights was Trent Alexander-Arnold's ball. Inside Davis for Mo Salah, you know what I mean? So
Phil Thompson was waxing lyrical about Trent Alexander-Arnold's second half performance on the Breakfast Show with Jeff Stelling and Ali McCoist on Monday morning. That sort of range of passing gives you so much. As an out-and-out winger, what's it like playing in front of a really good fullback?
Do you know what? What it does is you know you're going to get service, and the good thing about Trent is when you're a winger, you go long to come short to get it to feet, or you come short to go long, and you know full well that he'll seal that movement. How many times? Sometimes you see a winger come short, go long, and the fullback passes it the wrong decision. But Trent Alexander's got this instinct where he can just see out the corner of his eye because Salah did come short to get him behind, and the brilliant thing about the ball is normally you'd play that with the outside of your right foot to come into the space. But he actually played it with his instep and still got it like a bowl. It's like a crown green bowling, wasn't it? Still got it spot on with his pace. And then obviously Salah picks the right choice, obviously for Jota to get his goal. So it's Liverpool looked all right because it's a different style. They want to be more controlled. I worry about Ipswich just for the fact that they've got to get used to not having possession now. Kieran McKenna as well is a man who's used to winning. Ipswich have got to get used to, obviously, having less possession, closing down, and that can tire you, that runs your legs off you, mentally and physically.
They signed Sammy Szmodics and Calvin Phillips to bolster their squad. Phillips will add a little bit of extra protection for Sam Morsey in the middle of the park. And Szmodics scored a lot of goals in the Championship. Do you think we can see him translating that to the Premier League?
I think it's a gamble. I think it's the same with Liam Delap. They've put their faith in two players who score goals in the Championship, but we know about the step up. You could argue the step up has never been bigger. If you look at the fact last season, 3 promoted teams all went down, and wouldn't surprise me if we see history repeating. Yes, they battled in the first half. You'd expect that from a newly promoted team at home. But I think the way that Liverpool dominated in the second would worry me. They've got Man City away next weekend, so it's going to get worse before it gets better. I'm just not convinced the signings they've made are going to be enough to keep Ipswich in the Premier League.
Arne Slot flexed his muscles at half-time by taking Jarrell Quansah off. Afterwards, he said it was because he didn't win enough duels. Is this him sort of laying a marker down, saying, I'm the boss around here?
Yeah, I think as well, it's easy to take the younger player off, because Quansah's a young player. But to be fair, again, as a player, when a manager makes a decision and it improves your performance in the second half, which it did, then you buy into it quicker because...
Well, it's a little bit like the sliding doors moment I was talking about with the new signings. If you get off to a great debut, all of a sudden, the narrative around you changes. Same with a manager. If you make a big decision at half-time in your first ever game in the Premier League, when you've just taken over from Jurgen Klopp, and it comes off, and things dramatically change, which they did, then all of a sudden, everyone goes, yeah, I like the cut of this guy's jib.
Do you know what it is? They go, he knows what he's doing. Because it's your first half-time, in the big games, not the pre-season, your half-time team talk, if you've spotted what's going wrong, which he did. And if you look at the goal as well, which started from Alisson, Konate's involved. Konate goes into Gravenberch, and it comes out. So he probably looked at that and he thought maybe he's a bit more composed on the ball as well. Do you know what I mean? So all those decisions came to fruition. And you mentioned, Sam, Jota will make a massive difference if he stays fit and he's playing through the middle.
I'm convinced about him having a great season this year.
He took his goal superbly and actually had a chance.
Well, he should have scored with a header.
That one.
Yeah. That would have been a great goal as well. So I agree with you. If he stays fit, 20 goals?
Oh, I honestly think he'll rival Erling Haaland for the boot. If we were betting in a market without Erling Haaland, he would be my favourite because his goals to minutes ratio last season, even when he was injured, was excellent. But also, just using your eyes and watching him on a regular basis, his finishing is up there with the very, very best.
And it's good to see Mo Salah come over to the bald side, do you know what I mean? He's just sussed out, do you know what I mean?
Well, never mind his hair, but Liverpool will be delighted with his contribution as well because he didn't end last season very well.
He looked a bit leggy, didn't he, in the last season?
Atmosphere around Liverpool just a little bit different. Everyone seems sort of quite positive and focused going into the new season.
They're still getting stick, aren't they, the new hierarchy for the fact they've not signed a player yet. But it's difficult when you inherit a squad who were competing for 4 trophies towards the back end of last season. You don't want to sign players just for his own sake. Zubimendi was pretty much in the building. He's changed his mind. They can't do anything about that. That's what happens in the transfer window.
And also, that's the only position, really, they need another player. They don't really need to bloat the squad you go like Chelsea and just sign loads of players and then not know what to do with them when you get to the end of the transfer window or start annoying everybody by forcing them out. But actually, it's a bit more planned and sensible recruitment.
Also, Arne Slot look at it and say, I need to look at these players first.
Well, he has. He said, it's not easy to buy a player for this squad because everybody's so good.
And the other way as well, Sam, they've been ingrained for 9 years on the mayhem, and they like pressing football, carnage football. Then it's going to take, it's a good result for them, but it's going to take Arne Slot probably about 10 games, do you know what I mean, to actually get your players used to the way that you want to play because it's old dog, new tricks, basically. That's what he's trying to do. And say that win will then say, OK, we know what he's doing and he knows what he's doing.
Talking of old dog, new tricks, one of the things we achieved last year was get Perry to use Google Documents. It was amazing.
Good old-fashioned pen and paper today, though.
Although he did lose it yesterday and then realised it was in his junk, it took him an hour for him to find it, which was
at least you opened your running order.
I wish you knew to junk clothes. I didn't know what junk was.
Arsenal beat Wolverhampton Wanderers by 2-0. Things pretty positive at the Emirates Stadium. Perry wasn't convinced. He was nervous, biting his nails. He thought Wolves were going to come back. But you're worried about Wolves, aren't you?
A little bit. I think the 2 players they've lost, Max Kilman was really good at the heart of the defence last season, and Totti was an accident waiting to happen at the weekend, so I think they need somebody in there. And Pedro Neto, when he was fit, just gave them such an outlet. It didn't matter what the opposition was. I remember him playing so well against Man City early in the season when they beat them, that even if you're coming up against a top-class side, they are worried about you on the counter-attack, and I don't think Arsenal were particularly worried about Wolves. Yes, they created 2 big chances. The second one really was gifted to them by Arsenal, and Cunha should score. But I think they need some investment. I spoke to Gary O'Neill after the game. He said, we've got 100 million quid in the bank. We need to spend it.
Where are they going to spend it?
I'm not worried about Wolves at all. I think they're going to be fine because Gary O'Neill, I think, is an excellent tactician. And the Arsenal game, Arsenal control for the majority of the first half, even though it wasn't smooth. Do you know what I mean? There was little patches of play where Odegaard was getting himself on the ball and doing his...
Do they overplay at
stuff.
times, Arsenal?
No, I think what it is, I think when Zinchenko comes in to that inverted midfielder, he was giving the ball away like cheaply a couple of times, and then
he's not going to survive in that left back position.
Duran Timber will play in there. He come on in the second half, or Calafiori. But with Wolves, trust me, in the second half, Gary O'Neill asked them to be a little bit more proactive and a bit more ambitious, which they were. They were in control for about 10, 15 minutes, and Arsenal dropped a little bit too deep in that 4-4-2. In the first half, David Raya pulled off a world-class save from Strand Larsen's header, which is a brilliant ball from Wang Yi-Chang from the right-hand side. And with Strand Larsen up front, he now has a focal point. He has a centre forward for players like Matthias Cunha to play off of. Chang, Podence was on the bench, Sariba. So I wouldn't be worried about Wolves at all. And Cunha had a great chance as well, where he tries to bend it in the far right-hand post. It goes straight there. They'll be fine. Honestly, they will be fine. They're not going to be in a relegation battle. They'll be fine.
What about Arsenal? Lots of people still saying they might go in for a striker between now and the end of the window. Can you see that happening?
I'm not sure.
He left the door open for new signings, though, didn't he, in his interview afterwards?
Yeah, I think they'll get Mikel Merino, although that one's been dragging on most of the summer. Obviously, Eddie Nketiah is still there. There was interest from Bournemouth, but they've got their signing now in Evan Nilsson. I think Forest were interested as well, but from what I'm told, he wasn't particularly keen to make that move. So unless they can shift Nketiah, I don't really see there's room for centre forward. Havertz, for all his critics, scored a goal, made a goal. I thought looked really good.
Who's his critics?
Weekend.
You talking about yourself?
No, there's a lot of people who question whether Arsenal can win the league.
It's him, really,
with Kai Havertz up front. But I think he answered some of those questions.
Well, he won the Champions League, didn't he? I mean, and he's didn't do too bad.
And he scored the winning goal.
I don't think there's too much to worry about.
Do you know what I think?
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. In between being battered by you two.
If you look at Arteta, I think what he's doing, Mourinho, centre midfield, he's 6'2".
Yeah.
Calafiori,
it's a physical side now.
You could have 4 centre backs with like Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Calafiori. I think Arteta's looked at it and gone, we just need a bit more physicality, even though they had the best defensive record last season. And if you look, Arsenal have now won 17 of the last 19 Premier League games and still didn't win the Premier League last season.
It's a nice habit to get into.
And they weren't at their best.
Yeah, the problem is that Manchester City have been unbeaten since December.
They've won 10 in a row.
and by 2 clear goals, first team ever to do it, and by 2 clear goals in all those 10.
You can see why he wants Merino, though, because I did think Partey quickly looked very leggy. So, I mean, that's going to be the change, isn't it?
My big trend notice from the weekend was how many of the big boys kept clean sheets. Manchester City, Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool. I include Brighton in that as well. They've all kept clean sheets this weekend, and I think that's going to be a theme of the season. You know, I don't think we're going to have a record number of goals like we had last season. We might still have some VAR controversy, though. Mascara should have been sent off for throttling Havertz.
He just put his arm down. He was trying to break his fall.
He was tickling him, yeah?
Exactly.
Tickling him with force.
You just asked him if he could swap shirts at the end.
As he closed his windpipe, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, he's got to go for that, hasn't he?
But is it because, which I quite like, that's a subjective decision, and VAR is not going to get involved?
I think we're going to see more of that this year.
Which I'm happy with.
Referee's cool.
Referee's cool.
That's absolutely fine.
You're all right.
And the VAR said, well, you know, it wasn't that clear or obvious. OK. The other big decision, which I think is going to get people talking, is, listen, and I think he probably needs a little bit of grace period here. Sam Barrett's just been promoted to the Premier League this season, and he blew his whistle a little bit too early when Eberici Eze took a free kick at Brentford on Sunday. It was a brilliant goal, a fantastic free kick, but it was ruled out for holding on the edge of the penalty area because Sam Barrett was looking at the grappling instead of watching Eze's free kick.
It was a mistake. But it was a referee mistake as opposed to a VAR error. Because he blew the whistle, VAR can't intervene by law. And I think he's aware of it. I think he apologised afterwards. It won't make Palace feel any better. But I think you're right. Let's give him a benefit of the doubt. He's just been promoted. He's not used to using VAR.
Oliver Glasner was pretty sanguine about it.
You know what makes a difference, Sam? It's a human error, right? As Oliver Glasner said, and Eberici Eze said, he said sorry. He went, sorry. As soon as you hold your hands up and say, I've made a mistake, it doesn't make you as angry and as frustrated.
It takes the sting out.
Yeah, exactly. But we mentioned it yesterday, Sam, because the referees have got these new directives now, haven't they? They've got the higher bar with like free kicks. They've got the handball law, which they've been told, natural positions, and they've been told about the grappling. So I think Sam Barrett, in his head, and these referees now are looking for stuff, and he was looking for the Will Hughes and Nathan Collins at the edge of the box, and he was thinking, right, I've been told about this grappling. It's a new directive. I've spotted something there. So I think you'll see referees maybe actually calm down as well, after about 2 or 3 games. And I was at the game, and because I'm watching it and doing the show, I didn't realise how far Eberechi was out. I didn't realise, because I knew that Flecken had gone to his right-hand side a bit too far. But when you look at it, that's would have been 1 goal of the season.
That
Do you
would
know what I
have
mean?
been. It's a terrific free kick, and he was very disappointed, I'm sure, that it didn't count.
While we're talking about referees, and obviously we're highlighting some mistakes, I think we should praise Anthony Taylor. Gets a lot of stick from Chelsea fans. There was a few attempts to win penalties yesterday by the home side. He ignored them. I thought he had a really good game.
He did all right, and I thought that, for all the stick that Simon Hooper ended up getting about the monitor not working up at Goodison Park, they got that decision
It was the right call.
Right
Absolutely.
as well.
Perfect,
Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Lewis Dunk coming together. It was not a penalty, and they were right to overturn it for that one as well. Brereton Diaz was sent off in the Newcastle-Southampton game after a vicious, unbelievable, violent headbutt from Fabian
Well, he got
Schär,
through, to be fair.
who actually went right up to him and went like this.
I'm not even sure he did that.
You know what? To be fair, he got through the concussion protocols, didn't he, to beat Brereton Diaz?
His hair saved him.
It's embarrassing, right, as a man to throw yourself to the floor. Fabian Schär, by the letter of law, obviously he's stupid, but
You do have to take into consideration the level of violence. So, because it wasn't as obvious in terms of the way... They just sort of brushed foreheads.
Yeah.
As a referee, you could just deem that as reckless rather than a violent conduct.
Yellow card each.
Yeah, could have done
Fabian
that.
Schär, it took me back to... Can you remember at Stamford Bridge where Didier Drogba and Jens Lehmann come together and they both fell to the floor? And then everybody laughed and they both got up. Because what would he have done if Fabian Schär would have thrown himself to the floor as well? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, Brereton Diaz now, his card is now marked by all the referees because they'll be looking at it. If he's in the penalty
His card
area,
marked by the St James's Park crowd. They gave him the bird for the rest of the game.
If he goes now and he goes into penalty box and he goes down, in the referee's head, all the referees will be thinking, no, mate, you go down too early and too easily. Do you know what I mean? So he ain't done himself any favours.
Good performance by Southampton. They were unlucky not to get anything from that game, I thought.
Yeah, they were. And obviously the big frustration is the goal they conceded. Alex McCarthy's been making mistakes like that all through pre-season. So I think they will try and bring in a goalkeeper, probably on loan, who's more comfortable playing out from the back between now and the end of the window. But
Robert Sanchez?
reasons to be positive, I think, for Southampton. You look at the stats, albeit against 10 men, dominating possession, loads of corners, loads of chances. I think they'll be OK.
Goals, where they're getting their goals from. Because Adam Armstrong's got a brilliant record in the Championship. I think he's only scored 4 in 68 games, isn't he, in the Premier League. Brereton Diaz...
A lot of those were sub appearances, though.
Yeah, and Brereton Diaz, good record in the Championship, and he got a few goals for Sheffield United last season. So
Chelsea are going to help them out. They're going to give them Carney Chukwuemeka, aren't they? Or is he going to go to Palace? Or I don't know. Listen, they've got a Leslie Ogochukwu from Chelsea.
£23 million signing last summer. Sent out on loan this. Again, it sums up the chaos at Chelsea, but probably a nice pick-up for Saints.
They must have a striker that you can give them. I'm sure they have.
Have they got to get a bigger programme at Chelsea so you get like the squad list?
They just leave them off.
They don't do it. But they've only got, is it 4? Because they've got a lot of under 21 players.
Yeah.
So they've only 4 that actually have to go. And they could keep all the under 21.
It's fascinating, actually, because Chelsea's big issue is they've got too many players and they've got all these homegrown players, so they can all be part of the squad.
Yeah.
And because they're younger, yes, they can still be on the list, whereas Tottenham have got an issue. They haven't got enough homegrown players for their European adventure because Oliver Skipp is going to go to Leicester City.
Yeah, Big Ange seems quite relaxed about that, doesn't he?
He's quite relaxed about a lot, to be honest with you.
But I think they'll do a little bit more business, Spurs.
Interesting. OK. West Ham beaten at home by Aston Villa. Good result for Aston Villa. I was a little bit disappointed with the West Ham team, I've got to be honest with you. I was expecting to see some of the newer signings from the beginning.
Yeah, it's a strange thing because Fulkrug is fit, isn't he? Because obviously he played through the Euros, had his break. So Somerville would have done a pre-season. As a manager, I'd rather give my new signings 60 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And it gives everybody a lift, gives the crowd a lift, than bring them on with 10, 15 minutes to go. And with West Ham fans, they're not going to see this expansive, free-flowing, front-foot football. Lopetegui didn't do that at Wolves. He actually plays sort of David Moore. He plays more possession-based, but it's very lateral. So
is that the West Ham way?
What, possession-based? West Ham, I don't know, what is the way? Can you tell me what the West Ham way is?
Well, they like to play fast attacking football with wingers, don't they? They were brought up on that.
They've done that since Harry Redknapp was there, have they?
Yeah.
What's Harry doing now?
Or John Lyall.
Get him back.
Yeah, I think, again, Crookie made a brilliant point. Phil Crook is a centre forward who likes balls into the box from the wide areas. Now, you've got to, when you get in those wide areas, you've got to make sure whether it's Kudos, whether it's Crescenzo, Somerville, or it's Jarrod Bowen, that they actually whip it in straight away because he's going to get frustrated otherwise. But
it's got to be on the pitch for him to be able to get on the end of those crosses, and he didn't start the game. They gave that role to Mikel Antonio, which I must admit, after spending £31 million on the signing of the big star of the summer in terms of forwards anyway, because he was probably the only one that shone at the European Championships. I was surprised by that. Brentford beat Crystal Palace 2-1. We've already mentioned the controversial decision. No Ivan Toney because he was on the verge of a transfer somewhere else. Now, listen, everyone's saying he's going to go to Saudi Arabia. I've got this theory that the Brentford are flushing everybody else out. Come on, give us your money. Someone take him. Is he really? Is Ivan Toney? I mean, I know Ivan Toney's character. You know Ivan Toney's character. Is he really going to go to Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think he's chancing his arm with his demands because if they agree to it, he'll earn himself £18 million a year plus all kinds of living expenses and other endorsements.
He's got to pay tax on that. Oh, no, yeah.
Maybe Ivan Toney will go to Saudi Arabia.
So I think he's testing them. But in terms of Premier League interest, it's been very quiet. As we mentioned, he was on Spurs' list, but they've got Solanke. He spoke to Arsenal, I understand, early in the summer, but Edu didn't fancy him. I don't see United coming in at this stage. You never know what Chelsea are going to do. Aston Villa got mentioned to me last night, but how do you fit Ollie Watkins and Toney in the same team? They've got Duran as well, so that might be fanciful. OK,
thank you very much, Crookie. Thank you very much, Perry. This has been Premier League All Access from talkSPORT. Thanks to the boys who will be back later in the week. Remember, you can keep up to date throughout the season with all the action from the Premier League with the Premier League All Access podcast. It's available twice a week, wherever you get your podcasts. And after the weekend's action, it will always be on the talkSPORT YouTube channel. Thanks for watching and listening.